Thanks, Chris. Within 90 seconds of opening the public meeting into the Greenpoint debate, Mayor Ivan Welsh moved to close it. What spurred the Mayor to try and close the meeting was this letter received by Council from the owner's development consultant, Trevor Hudson and Associates. In this letter, the consultant said he'd been instructed by his clients to withdraw the present application for the rezoning of the land. The owners are now looking at taking the council to the Land and Environment Court. The letter was sent after Lake Macquarie City Council refused the owner's application to divide the estate into 4 rural blocks. Despite the Mayor's move to close the meeting, the Alderman debated this latest move in sealing the future of the estate. Alderman Hanley told the meeting that the Alderman and the Council should sit down and discuss Greenpoint face to face. But the development consultant said the Greenpoint debate had dragged on for 8 years, his client's patience had elapsed, and if rezoning was not possible, then court action, including the possible seeking of compensation of $9 million, was the only alternative. Scott Bevan at Lake Macquarie City Council for NBN News.
The shipyard was placed in receivership just before Christmas last year, with 450 workers losing their jobs in the ensuing months. Australian Submarine Corporation Managing Director Don Williams predicts some hull fabrication work for the Navy's new submarine fleet being carried out in Adelaide would be moved to Carrington. And if ASC is successful in its bid to win a contract for 3 Philippines Navy patrol boats, the $200 million project would come to Newcastle. The purchase price for the shipyard has not yet been disclosed.
This intersection of John Renshaw Drive and the New England Highway at Beresfield is the end point for the F3 freeway. But it's also an accident black spot with an average of 3 crashes each month. Today, Land Transport Minister Bob Brown announced work has begun to design plans and acquire land for a $17 million interchange bridge off John Renshaw over and then onto the New England Highway.
We need to have that completed at the end of 1993, when we will have completed the National Highway from Sydney right through to Beresfield.
Also planning for the future, 6 Brambles trainees passing the first stage of a groundbreaking new course. The employees received a certificate on transport workers' skills. No other course in Australia covers such a detailed study of the industry. Peter Ryan, NBN News.
The Maryland Residents Group has remained determined in their 2.5-year fight to have the waste dump proposal stopped. They believe the site at Summerhill is too close to residential areas and are pushing for a regional waste site on the outskirts of Newcastle. But until now, their protests have been ignored by Newcastle Council, which has gone ahead with the work and set an opening date of 1992. But a spanner has been thrown in the works, with the resident group being granted legal aid to oppose the development through a government-funded body called the Environmental Defenders Organisation.
The main one is the fact that the council have not done an EIS, which gives everyone the legal chance of objecting to what they are putting there against a residential area.
Work on the dump site has now stopped until the matter is heard in the Land and Environment Court. A date will be set on Friday. Residents believe they have a strong chance of winning this case. Their barrister is Peter McEwen, who recently represented residents in a similar battle which prevented development of the Londonderry dump in the northwest of Sydney. If they are successful, it could cost council thousands of dollars in work already carried out. Jodie McKay, NBN News.
It was only 4 days ago that the head of the Hunter Area Health Service, Dr. Owen James, told staff at the Royal Newcastle that their hospital or the Wallsend and Curry hospitals may be closed within a month. Today the workers were addressed by a number of politicians, unionists and the Lord Mayor, Alderman John McNaughton.
It will cause the decline of the inner part of the city. We can't afford that, and the total cost for that would be enormous. It cannot be allowed to occur.
The area's health service has revealed it spends $500,000 over its budget every week. Funds must come from somewhere to make up the shortfall. Otherwise, at the end of the next financial year, the Hunter will have a budget blowout of about $25 million. A decision about which services will be axed won't be made for a few weeks. In response to last Friday's news, staff met today to work out a strategy to save the services, hospital and the 500 jobs they've been told will go. It seems the staff of the Royal Newcastle will be taking their grievances to the street. They're planning a rally in Newcastle on the 30th of July.
We would hope that the community of Newcastle fully support that, because it's not just an industrial dispute, it's trying to keep the economy of Newcastle going and to keep the beds available for patients in Newcastle.
The state opposition is weighing in heavily in the fight to save health services in the Hunter. A delegation of the newly formed Hunter Region Labor Task Force met with Dr Owen James this afternoon.
It's vital that we know exactly what premise the government is using to even suggest that hospital cases should take place, and prepare an attack that we can use publicly at this time and in Parliament when Parliament reconvenes, to make sure that this hospital region is kept intact.
The Choke Task Force has been investigating earthquake claims for 12 months. 7 detectives were assigned to the operation after the GIO referred about a dozen insurance claims to the police, which the insurance company considered irregular. At that stage, the total value of the suspect claims was about $150,000. Since then, the detectives were referred to another 600 claims involving amounts from $2,000 to $200,000. Other insurance companies, including the NRMA and NZI, have also become involved in the operation, pushing the total number of suspect claims to about $30 million. Today, the Sydney Morning Herald revealed that the Choke Force was about to act against 3 major building companies based in Sydney. Head of the operation, Sergeant John Tate, was unable to comment on the extent of police operations, saying only that the report was accurate. While detectives say they're not pleased that details of Operation Choke have been published, they say it won't affect their inquiries and arrests will go ahead as planned. Insurance companies say the earthquake was a learning experience, and the sheer volume of claims in the early days after the quake made it impossible to individually assess each case. Instead, the companies chose to follow up the work, ensuring that estimates and repairs were consistent with damage. Newcastle GIO branch manager George Quintrell said most claims were for minor damage.
The average cost is somewhere between $6,000 to $8,000, but there would be many claims, at least in excess of 20,000.
Newcastle Lord Mayor John McNaughton said the alleged incidents of quake fraud were not surprising.
No, not at all. When it's all said and done, there's about 2% of the work under investigation. I say that there's 98% of work very well done, and I see that the police and the insurance companies, as usual, are doing an excellent job.
In the meantime, police will continue to comb through about 8,000 claims. They've already laid 70 charges against individuals for smaller fraud matters of amounts averaging about $15,000. Tom Hilston, NBN News.
From moody soul to gutsy jazz and the traditional school choir, tonight's show includes styles from across the musical spectrum.
The 1950s, 1960s music is very, very popular this year, but then again we've also got a rock group which are playing, a true 1990s, rock sound. So there's a very, very big variety tonight.
The students chose many of the pieces themselves, and according to music teacher Lynn Cook, they're showing great interest in the styles and trends of past decades.
I think they're finding that the 1950s, 1960s, 1970s sounds can be revived, like a lot of rock performers are doing today.
The performance starts at 7 tonight at the university's Great Hall. The Charlestown pool has entered an elite realm, one of few outdoor pools in the state to be heated. The 25-metre 6-lane pool, built 15 years ago, is now heated by 200 square metres of solar panelling. When the panels can't generate enough heat, a gas booster takes over. And swimmers' reactions?
Good.
Is it cold?
Hot.
What's the water like?
Good.
Is it cold?
No. In summertime it's better.
It's taken the Charlestown Swim Club years of letter writing and lobbying to raise the $56,500 needed to heat the pool. The state government providing just under half the money, and Lake Macquarie City Council and the club itself the rest. But the club's plans don't end here. They hope to heat the Olympic pool and eventually cover the entire complex. Chris Barth, NBN News. The Cohen Bond store has stood vacant for many years. Built at the turn of the century, it was used as a spice warehouse and for storage. In recent times, though, it's been left to the elements and the pigeons. But today signalled a new era for the building.
At $385,000 for the Bond store. Sold. The gentleman down the front. How about that?
Although the building has 360-degree views which take in the ocean, the foreshore and the city, its estimated work worth over $1 million needs to be done. But new owners Alan Ring and David Olsen are pleased with their buy.
I was prepared to spend a little bit more money on it than what I actually did. So, yes, it was a bargain in that way.
Mr Olsen and Mr Ring are Sydney builders who came to Newcastle to undertake earthquake repairs. They've now made a commitment to stay. A development application to build 8 luxury apartments on the site was approved by council early this year. The new owners say they'll keep to that idea and build an apartment block.
Police say the furry offender made no attempt to resist arrest, but he has refused to cooperate or assist authorities with their inquiries since being taken into custody.
He was found wandering at large on the F3 freeway at about 11:30 last night, but he was taken into custody. But when we got him back to the police station, he refused to leave the back of the van or answer any questions.
Concerned by the prisoner's dopey condition, police have ordered a thorough medical examination, but believe a suspicious green leafy substance could be the cause.
Yes, but he managed to swallow that before we could actually ascertain what it was.
That could, though, explain his condition?
Yes, it could be, yes. He could be under the influence of some sort of unnamed substance.
Police say it's unlikely the young male will be sent to the maximum security Taronga Park facility. His previously unblemished record should see him set free on unconditional bail. Bruce Mackenzie, NBN News.
Emergency services were called to Taree Airport at about 9:30 this morning to find the Cessna 172 firmly embedded in a wire fence and turf at the end of the airstrip. The pilot, 40-year-old John Chapman, has 300 hours experience. He'd been flying circuits from the runway when his engine stalled on takeoff. He managed to wrestle the aircraft down just metres short of the busy Pacific Highway.
Well, I attempted to land the aircraft as quickly and as best I could, and in the end I just ran out of space.
Damage to the $80,000 aircraft is expected to total more than $30,000. The pilot suffered some back injuries during the impact. He's undergoing a routine medical checkup.
The Chamber's board heard from Senator John Tierney, the Hunters' voice in the upper house in Canberra. He's lobbying to speed up improvements to Newcastle's main gateways of commerce and industry, such as upgrading Williamtown Airport and the installation of cargo container loading facilities in the port.
We've got one of the best economic bases in Australia, but because we don't have proper road systems, airport facilities or ports to export, business is very much hampered. This area could be booming if we had the right infrastructure.
Chamber members elected their new president, Scott Derwin, along with an executive and committee. High on a list of priorities is a renewed push for the streamlining of building application approvals in the city. The Chamber also reaffirmed its support for the establishment of a wool export village, currently the focus of a feasibility study. A shining light in the tunnel to economic recovery is the work local companies may stand to win from the Anzac frigate contract. Representatives of the Victorian-based company Amacon, which holds the lion's share of the project, will be in Newcastle at the end of the month to emphasise the opportunities in associated subcontract work.
Amacon obviously are not going to hand out anything to Newcastle industry unless it can be competitive. Obviously, I think Amacon coming to Newcastle indicates that it believes that Hunter industry can be competitive, which we totally support.
For the third time in 12 years, the people of Kurri Kurri feel their hospital is under threat. Hundreds packed the local workers' club today, with many more spilling outside. When Bob Carr arrived, he was given a folk heroes reception. Claims that Health Minister Ron Phillips had promised to boost the Hunters' health budget by $10 million had done nothing to calm the crowd. With an estimated budget blowout of $25 million, many still fear some services will be cut, and Mr Carr was quick to fan the flames of controversy.
Mr Greiner throws away $80 million of your money, taxpayers' money, on the Eastern Creek Bikeway in Western Sydney.
With the prospect of a legal challenge still hanging over the seats of Maitland and the entrance, the opposition leader may yet be forced to put his money where his mouth is.
We can make this a leaner administration in New South Wales without cutting the basic health services on which people, communities like this depend.
There were similar scenes at Wallsend later in the day when Shadow Health Minister Andrew Refshaugi addressed another crowd of angry residents concerned about the future of their hospital.
And we don't have either of the two ministers of health prepared to come here and tell you what's really going to happen.
Bruce McKenzie, NBN News.
It was built as a joust to test any hardy's soul, and the way in which Mark Glanville opened it was obviously no place for the faint-hearted. Alexander, however, seemed to have the ball on a string. Moments later, it was 12-0 as Fittler and Alexander put Carter in space. More woes for the Knights as they battled hard to contain the runaway mountain men, but to no avail. Finally, just before half-time, the Knights rallied and closed the gap by 6. It could have been closer at the break, but Steve Walters couldn't hang on to a Michael Hagan pass and the try went begging. Back from Oranges, and giant winger Mackay used super skills for his second. Again the Knights rallied with Hagan and Sargent putting Brunker away. But Mackay put the nail in the coffin of the Blue and Reds with number 3, and the Panthers were home.
well, we've been through them. We've gone through with them before.
The Premier, Nick Greiner, was supposed to be the keynote speaker at the Hunter Valley Research Foundation dinner at the City Hall tonight. Due to illness, he was unable to attend, and the Minister for State Development, Michael Yabsley, took his place. What do you think of the reception you've been given tonight?
Oh, very warm.
That interpretation wasn't echoed by the Labor member for Newcastle, Bryce Gaudry.
Well, he's ducking the issue. It's a cold reception from the people of Newcastle and the Hunter. They're not going to cop the closure of hospitals.
About 20 police were on hand to control the crowd, but their services weren't required.
Well, we expected a larger crowd here this evening. We had information there would be more people here, and I think possibly the change of guest speaker or dinner speaker tonight might have made a difference to the crowd.
Growth in the demand for steaming coal is expected to come primarily from Asia, giving the Hunter Valley the chance to increase production from 55 to 76 million tonnes by the year 2000. It's a bright outlook, and according to Ian Campbell of the Department of Mineral Resources, one the local coal industry must exploit.
It's a very optimistic outlook that we have for the entire community here in terms of increased jobs. Just 1,500 alone, I think we could expect without the multipliers in the next very short period. So, you know, this is good for the community.
During the next decade, around 10 new mine projects will come online throughout New South Wales. Most of these will be in Singleton and Muswellbrook. But mining companies are not the only link in the coal chain which must prepare for the increase in demand. It's estimated that by 1995, less than 7% of all coal moved will be by road. Tens of millions of tonnes will be brought to the Port of Newcastle by rail, and that means freight rail must become more competitive. Today's gathering was told that during the next 5 years, around $150 million will be spent by freight rail on new rolling stock.
Today we saw tenders close for brand new locomotives which will be delivered during 1993, and within a matter of weeks we will call tenders for 350 more coal wagons.
Staff numbers will also be cut further.
We have seen over the past 2 years our staff numbers drop from 16,350 to 12,500, and by mid-1994 we'll be down to 9,500.
Also convincing today's meeting of its commitment to competitiveness, the Port Waratah Coal Services. The handling charge of coal now stands at its 1976 level of $4 per tonne. Jodie McKay, NBN News.